Well, good morning. First I want to thank Councilman Zone for being here. As you know, he's the chairman of our Public Safety Committee, and we work closely with him and on everything that we do in regards to public safety, both on the enforcement side, the consent decree, the prevention side, all these kind of things. So I want to thank you for being here. Crime is a hot topic. People have been talking about it, and rightfully so. But I want to tell you that crime is not a cause. It's a symptom. It's a symptom of something going on. And crime is something that we have to address, but if we address it as a symptom, then we'll constantly be chasing our tail. So we have to deal with the causes of things. And there is no panacea. So there's no one thing that will solve the issue of crime and violence and things like that. We need a broad effort to deal with the causes that result in violence and death in our city. Now, we've done some things. Some of those things is education. Our whole reform plan was around education, the higher education compact to give young people the opportunity to go to gain a skill or go to college. Jobs, we've worked with that on our, as you know, the Fannie Lewis law, our local hiring laws to ensure that people, when we do economic development, that Clevelanders are on those jobs, both in construction and the permanent side, and really wealth creation. You know, it's always good to have a job, but it's even better to have the ability to give one. And so we want to make sure that there's wealth creation. That's why we have our community benefits agreement to ensure that the wealth is being created that is of benefit to the community as a whole. Now, we've been working in all these areas, and it will take time. As I said, if we were just dealing with the symptom, then that's one thing, but it's not going to get us any result. When you deal with the cause, it takes time, and it takes a lot of effort and energy and resources, and there's no different here. Now, the initiative that we're announcing today is just one more tool in our effort to combat crime, and particularly violence that results in death, and that violence that results in death with youth and with young adults. Now, doing it through, and we want to do it through prevention, intervention, opportunity, and enforcement. All of those things, those four areas, prevention, intervention, opportunities, and enforcement. This citywide initiative will be supported by several departments and external partners. Several departments and external partners. Some of our external partners are here today, and our departments, internal departments are here. Example, the Department of Health, headed by Director Gordon, will have 2 newly created positions that will focus on youth violence as a health epidemic. Community Relations Board, headed by Director Griffin, Director Griffin, will have 5 newly created positions, 3 outreach workers and 2 crime analysts. And in addition, what we're doing, we are putting $1 million in his budget to address programming associated with this initiative and efforts that we have here. So it'll be $1 million in his budget along with those 5 new positions. The Division of Recreation, we have Director Cox here, and we already have youth programming and job opportunities that are created through the Recreation Division, but we'll have more of that as part of this initiative. The Department of Public Safety, this division will have 65 additional police officers. This is 65 above the current strength as our first year objective here, and we'll develop strategies to combat crime and violence based on crime analysis. Now, I'm going to take a little break here so that I can ask Deputy Chief Drummond to come up and give you a brief description of what the Division of Police under Director McGrath will be doing with this initiative.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
What we're going to do in the Division of Police relative to our efforts as enforcement is we're going to start a unit up called the NICE unit. And it stands for Neighborhood Impact Community Engagement Squad. That particular squad will operate out of the Bureau of Special Investigation. Currently, Commander Gary Gingell runs that particular command. It's important to understand that we wanted to make sure that this particular unit or squad is headed up by a command level officer. And that will be at this particular point, Commander Gary Gingell. Part of this initiative with the NICE for short, N-I-C-E, NICE squad, will be to, and this is their mission, is to proactively target violent crime areas identified through the crime analysis unit, by the community, district commanders. The members assigned to this particular squad will and shall constitutionally and professionally police areas identified by those particular units I mentioned before by means of uniformed as well as plainclothes operations. The officers will engage with the community by utilizing problem-oriented policing model. The NICE officers, again, NICE for short, will concentrate on crimes involving violence, which include gun violence, apprehending violent felons and offenders, and also just part of their responsibilities will be community engagement. We have to engage the community in our efforts relative to our initiative, which will take place commencing January 1, 2017.
Now, as the Deputy Chief briefly outlined, this unit will start off with initially 10 people, but will, over the course of the year, ramp up to?
Over the course of the year, we should ramp up to 40 uniform officers and 20 detectives.
And so you'll have 60 additional officers just specifically designed to deal with crime that has violence as part of its what they do. All right. Now we have a cadet class in Columbus now that will be graduating.
Graduating in Columbus in February and graduating from the Cleveland Police Academy 8 weeks later.
And then we are looking to start a new academy when?
New academy, well, the lateral entries will start in February.
Right.
Another academy will start in May, and then another academy directly after that.
So this is a crime reduction deployment strategy by the Division of Police. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now the time, and the reason for this is the time to put our resources and our efforts where our mouth has been for some time. Some mouths are bigger than others, but this is the time where it's time to actually get something done. And I want to thank the people of the city of Cleveland, because we have been strategizing this for some time in the administration, but we never had the resources that we needed to be successful. And that's why I want to thank the people of the city of Cleveland, because with the passage of the 0.5% income tax, they have given us now the resources we need in order to combat crime in the city of Cleveland, violent crime in the city of Cleveland. So we can't claim that we want to make a difference in the reality of kids and in our communities and not have some intentional effort to address the problems that exist. As a result of this work, we will be increasing partnerships, developing leadership, connect young people to the prosperity of our city as our city continues to develop. To lead and coordinate this effort, I'm creating a cabinet level position Now, this is important. This is not going to be someone with someone just running a program. This is a cabinet level position that is higher than a director. This will be a chief, and his title will be Chief of Prevention, Intervention, and Opportunity for Youth and Young Adults. They will sit in the mayor's cabinet on Wednesday, and their direct report is to me as to how they, the results, and they will be working with these various departments in order to accomplish what they, now, let me introduce the person who we have picked to be the chief of this new initiative. That's Mr. Duane Deskins. Mr. Deskins has been a federal prosecutor for more than 30 years. He recently joined the county prosecutor's office in 2013 as chief prosecutor for the juvenile division and director of crime prevention. During his tenure at the Justice Department, Mr. Deskins worked as the assistant U.S. attorney in Boston, Chicago, Los Angeles, and in his native Cleveland. Mr. Deskins helped shape and implement the department's Project Safe Neighborhoods and Project Century strategy to reduce violent crime using data-driven initiatives and broad-based community collaboration. Since taking charge of the juvenile division, county juveniles division, Mr. Deskins has led a proactive effort to crack down on youth gang violence within the detention center and in neighborhoods throughout Cuyahoga County. He has worked with the police chiefs, and the community, different community groups alike to deter juvenile crime and has presented at-risk youngsters with positive options and opportunities. He has also forged close ties between the prosecutor's office at the Juvenile Justice Center and those who work downtown at the Adult Justice Center. Now, it's very important to, I can remember when I was a councilman and even before I became a councilman, so I'm talking about decades. And decades ago, there was always this conversation about Cleveland kids going into prosecution and other kids going into diversion programs. So that meant the Cleveland kids wound up being in one sentence more often than not. And there was also this problem about juveniles getting arrested and put in an adult holding cell at the Justice Center while they were waiting transportation to go to the detention facility, juvenile detention facility. Mr. Deskins, in his short period of time at the county and responsible for the juvenile detention facility, corrected both of those problems in a short period of time. So that just demonstrates the kind of passion and the kind of determination and the understanding of the system that Mr. Deskins has. Mr. Deskins grew up in the Glenville and Shaker Square neighborhoods in Cleveland and graduated from St. Ignatius High School. He received his undergraduate and law degree from Boston College and is currently as the first assistant county prosecutor. Now, he is still working at the county. He will be leaving the county shortly. When he does that, I'll hold another press conference and swear him in. But until then, his boss has given him the leave to come here to be part of this event, and I greatly appreciate Mr. McGinty allowing him to do it. And let me wrap up by saying that Mr. Deskins is well known in his profession. He does not need to talk about himself because those people who know him and know his work know the quality of that work and the passion of the man who does the work. We have a great expectation of Mr. Deskins, and because he has great expectation of himself. And so I'm very confident that what he will talk to you about, it will be something that will help us as a community deal with not just crime, because that's a symptom, but deal with those underlying causes of crime as he coordinates activities and collaborates with internal and external people to solve our problems. Mr. Deskins.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. Let me just say that this is a tremendous opportunity. So the mayor mentioned that I had traveled around the country, and it was a great pleasure to come home. It's a great pleasure because these are people who are like you, who grew up in the same neighborhoods and face the same challenges. And the opportunity we have here is unprecedented because around the country, people are concerned about youth violence, and they come at it in their own ways. But what the mayor has done here today, and will do going forward with all of the cabinet officers and officials who are here, and I want to thank each and every one of you and our city council for their leadership here, and the people for their vote of confidence in the referendum, is that we're going to bring together all of the different parts and pieces of this community to try and build something different, to build something that we started in the U.S. Attorney's Office with the help of Mike Walker and others, to try and get past the notion that safety is simply just a reduction in crime. It's actually an increase in opportunity. It's an increase in chance for kids who find themselves, for no fault of their own, in a path that will lead only to juvenile justice and down the street to criminal justice. They call it a pipeline. Well, it's not a pipeline. It's just a process of behaviors. And working together with every one of you and all of us across this city, public and private, I believe that we can actually begin to bend the curve in favor of these young people who so desperately want to succeed and are just looking for someone somewhere to give them an opportunity, whether it be in terms of diversions, an opportunity if it means in terms of intervention, to be a break between those who are dragging them into something they'll never get out of, or actually maybe even a job. Even a job, a chance to, as every one of you did when you were young, a chance to work and learn the value of work and the maturity that comes from it. And then, of course, education, education, and education. I think that this is an historic opportunity the mayor has created here. I'm so happy to be part of his broader vision. This is something that I've worked so hard for, maybe because I didn't have kids of my own. But you don't have to have kids of your own to love them. And if you love them, then you will work like a dog for them. Again, Mayor, thank you so very much.
Any questions?
Well, maybe for Mr. Deskins, I mean, what are some of the things you plan to do with this? How will this division, and it's very early, but what do you plan to do? I mean, what are some of your first thoughts on this new?
I think very early is about 5 minutes. So I think that the mayor talked about it, and I just want to echo some of those thoughts. The various components and parts, people across the country in the highest level of the Department of Justice have talked about bringing the different components of government together. Whether you talk about housing, if you talk about employment, if you're talking about public health, medicals, you're talking about education. And what the mayor's vision is, I think, and I certainly share that completely and have for a long time, is that we would all be better served, both financially as well as in terms of outcomes, if we actually collaborated. And that's in the business community. That's where the job creation sustainability comes from, is that investing in our community, and most importantly, investing in our young people. That, you look around and you ask how many of these kids, 16 to 25, have a meaningful place to work. We're trying to find a way to create those pathways for them. Because every day you see the pathway created by those who seek to disrupt and cause violence in our community. They have a pathway. It's now time that we create one of our own and be that model for across the country. I think that what the mayor was talking about, whether you talk about the central booking of juveniles or creating the new diversion project, is that we become part of a national conversation about how things can be better for everyone, not just here, but across the country. And I think that that's what the mayor's vision really was, is to stand up and say, violence is something that we can stop, and we can stop it using tools and methods and means that are part of our community if we all are willing to partner and work together. That's what I'm talking about. And in the clearest sense of the word, there is nothing that we won't do to try and collaborate for the benefit of our kids. And that includes everyone. There's no one going to be left on the sidelines. Yes. Sorry.
Often you mentioned the private sector and the business community, that often can be the largest hurdle. How do you think, how can you bring them to the table as stakeholders? How can you help them to see that they have
Absolutely. The number one determinant for most employers when they seek out a place to carve out a business is they look at the quality of life there, and they decide if that's something that's important. And one of the things we want to do is grow value for them, that we have a hard-working workforce, we have young people who are eager to learn, that we can try and make it safer for them and their employees to establish a business, grow roots, and become one of those 100-year-old companies that we always like to talk about, that there will be a Cleveland 100 years from now, and maybe some of these new companies will come here, and they'll be part of that group, and they'll be creating opportunity for everyone, including our young people.
And we have an infrastructure. We have an infrastructure through workforce development. We have an infrastructure through the monies that we'll be putting into Blaine's shop, and we'll leverage that with organizations who focus on this kind of stuff. I know that in your previous capacity at the U.S. Attorney's Office, you did that. Could you describe some of the things that you did?
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. So in the U.S. Attorney's Office, we created had the Project Safe Neighborhood program, but we also created the Stance Initiative. We were one of the first and original 6 cities in the country, and there were many naysayers. And look, I grew up in this area, and I understand that people often feel that we are not going to win things, but we were chosen, of all the cities in the United States, be one of the original 6 to do that. And we worked closely with our partners, the Case Western Reserve. We worked with the Partnership for a Safer Cleveland, Mike Barker, Dan Flannery, to create a pilot that included enforcement, prevention, and reentry. And we had a modest budget to do so, but if you look at across the spectrum during that period of time, violence was down, and like many things, there are systemic problems that we have to fix, and we were going to fix. And that's what's exciting about what the mayor said today, and that is, if we can fix these things, we can actually have a sustainable solution. And I think that what you heard in the voters over the past election is that they're committed to try and see a change. And I think the business community and others will rally to that. The other alternative is not really plausible. And I think that what you see in our growth in the city, the RNC and other events, that there's a new energy and excitement across the country about where the city is going. And under its leadership with the mayor and our fine police chief and the city council and director here, I think that you're going to see that it's not always that you have a chance to do something like the mayor's doing here. He has all the people, all the pieces, and all the parts there. This is our time to win, the City of Champions.
Earlier this year, the city unveiled a comprehensive plan to address youth violence. How does Mr. Deskins' appointment fit in with that? Will he be overseeing that comprehensive plan and its management?
See, part of what our problem is not for. We have a lot of efforts going on by a lot of people, and we attempt to do this comprehensive plan to roll it under one umbrella that would result in how do we measure ourselves, right? Well, the city of Cleveland is a significant partner in that. And so we want to bring all of our resources to the table in a collaborative way, and so that it can be effective and efficient. Also, he will have the authority of the mayor's office. He'll be the chief of this initiative, so he'll have the authority of the mayor's office. And so he can call people and begin to work on it. Blaine, the overall youth strategy thing, you have something to add to that?
Sure. Mayor, we have with us today a couple of the partners that have been working with us to develop it. Dr. Dan Flannery from the Begun Center at Case Western Reserve and Mike Walker. So the good thing about this is Duane has already been partnering with us on this strategy. So he'll jump right in, and he'll probably be part of the team that will continue to move this effort forward.
Please don't, the mayor's very kind. And I walked in the building today, I saw one of your staff people, and I apologized. I said, today will be a day that I don't call you. I am not shy about picking up the phone, and I think that's why the mayor wants this position to be where it is, so that the young people in this community have an ear and have a chance to be heard at the highest table in the city. And I have no problem speaking up on their behalf because I think what we all want is what they want, and that is an opportunity to be able to invest and grow and raise a family here and be successful here. That's all they want. And they just don't know how it is that we've done a lot of work with kids, and the number one question they ask is, how do I get to be like you? How do I get to do the things that they do? And one of the things that we're going to do is create these opportunities and pathways, but that's consistent with what law enforcement wants. They want the exact same thing. The mayor's vision is that we can all work in one team, all in one boat, rowing in the same direction for the first time, indeed maybe across this country. In that regard, I wanted to mention one more thing. In about an hour and a half, an historic thing is going to happen just down the street, and that's going to be bail reform. Bail reform.
We'll both be there.
And the mayor and many others are going to be there to allow this. This is a huge accomplishment. The Arnold Foundation, Judge Adrian, are coming in to try and actually create greater equity so that we put the right people in pretrial detention, but we save so many who are there now who shouldn't be there and don't pose a risk of flight or danger. And they have done this across the country, and we're now going to be embracing that here because they saw something, and again, coming back to the mayor's point, they saw something here that was replicable, that also showed a community-wide commitment, and that's why the mayor is going to be there to tell them that the people of this community are ready for bail reform. And I think that's a huge accomplishment that's been much needed.
And one more follow-up. What is happening in Cleveland is happening at some level and some intensity all over the country. You can go to any city in any part of the country, what is happening. So what is happening is not new. And even the conversation that Mike Walker and Mr. Flannery is having, these aren't new conversations. The difference is execution and implementation. And that's what we're attempting to do here by putting personnel in place, resources in place, and leadership in place. And our goal is to now execute on what his academically and experience through community over the years has demonstrated to work. It works. But it only works if you're able to have the leadership and the coordination of all of the, not just the city's resource, but the business community, the philanthropic community, those people who don't have large budgets, but they're out there working every day. Every day they're out there working. And they do their work out of love and passion for what they do and love and passion for children. But they work. And so now what we want to do, we want to support them. We want to create an infrastructure that will allow for them, their work to be more effective, so that they can have more of an impact and to do the things that we do. And so this is about the coordination and implementation and execution and leadership. That's what this is about. All the stuff is there. We just have an opportunity now to resource it, to resource that leadership and resource that collaboration and things like that, if that answers your question.
One more question, sorry. You had mentioned, Mr. Deskins, how you use data in past steps in your career to kind of drive the direction of where you're headed. How can that play a role in what you're going to be embarking on now?
So one of the things that we did when I was with the United States Attorney's Office is that our partners, the mayor's already identified them all, and we identified the places that had the most serious crime, that had the least amount of resources, and we tried to then identify those communities and then find partners on law enforcement, and we talked about some of those earlier today, but also partners in terms of community services. What kinds of needs do those communities have, and how can we best supply those needs using the existing capacity of what we had? Because as the mayor pointed out, it's really the combination of all of those things, all of those resources. Where are we strong? Where are our assets? Maybe those are things, places that we can also try to make a connection. And so we've done this before. This is what made that project so successful and around the country. And I think what the mayor has done is that we don't always have to have it led by the Department of Justice. There is nothing that stops the people of the city and this administration from doing the exact same thing for the benefit of the people here, and indeed the ripple effect will help everybody throughout this area.
Anybody else? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Councilman.